This book was so fun. I know. When I recommend this book to people, they kind of look at me weird. I adore this book with my entire heart and soul. I love this book with my entire heart. These books are my entire heart and soul. I love this book so incredibly much. Okay, I understand some of these books that you may not want to pick up or may not want to love. I don't understand this one. Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I am so excited that you joined me today. For today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 20 favorite books of all time. These books are my favorite top tier books that I've ever read. Now, it is important for you to know that I have not always been a reader, so I have just really recently became a reader these past few years. I really began to dive into reading when I was a senior in college, and it all started with my professor just telling me about one of her favorite books, and it just so happens to also be my favorite book. So just know that if you're ever wondering about sharing your love of reading, you never know who you can be helping. Okay, before we go any further into the video, I just want to say a huge thank you for helping me reach 3,000 subscribers. Honestly, sitting here, I would have never in my life thought that I would hit 500 subscribers, much less 3,000. I have met so many beautiful people through this platform, and I'm just so thankful that you are here, and all of you that continue to watch and leave comments. I promise I see you, and I appreciate you and your support so much. I love you so much. And I also really quick wanted to show you what my husband did, because we had been talking about like me hitting 3,000, and that was like when I was at 2,600 or something like that, and I started talking about it, and I was like, wow, we're like I'm almost at 3,000, and I honestly thought that he forgot about it. Because, you know, my husband is not super big into reading, so like he doesn't get on BookTube a lot. But the day, literally the day that I hit 3,000, he came in with this. This just made me fall in love with this man even more. I just love my husband. He's literally the best. And he brought in this guy, which it looks kind of weird from this angle. This is Taryn from Fourth Wing. Like, look at his little wings. He has little wings, and he's got a little tail. And my sister-in-law crochets, and she's so talented, obviously. And my husband had her create Taryn for me hitting 3,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh, I literally screamed when I saw him. If you ever like see something black on my top shelves right here, because that's where the Fourth Wing series is, that is where Taryn lives. So just know that he is up there. Before we begin, I did want to include an honorable mentions portion of this video, because there are so many books that I could not exclude from this video. Like, I physically can't. It would hurt me to do so. So I'm going to just show you very quickly a few books that still mean so much to me, but unfortunately they didn't make the top 20, but I do love these books so much, and I want to put them on your radar. So that's what the first part of this video is going to be. So if you're wondering why I'm like holding up books rapid fire, just know I love them, but they're not part of the original list. Here we go. The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Notes on an Execution. Powerful by Lauren Roberts. When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Magic of Lemon Drop Pie by Rachel Linden. The Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams. I love these books so much. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. In the Fields of Grace by Tessa Afshar. Those are all of my honorable mentions. I just wanted to put those books on your radar and show you how much I really loved them by tabbing them. So let's go ahead and get into the top 20 list. This list is in no particular order, okay? I need you to understand that. Number 20 means no less to me than number 5. If you read these books and hated them, please do not let me know, okay? Because I will hear no hate on these books. whatsoever. Starting out at number 20 is a series that is not for everyone, and that is the Lakefront Billionaire series by Lauren Asher. Lauren Asher has always been on my radar, especially since I became a reader, and really when I became a romance reader. And I picked up her Dreamland Billionaire series first and loved that series, but this one is her newest series that she has written, and the first one is Love Redesigned, and the second one is Love Unwritten. It is no secret that I love these books so much, and I have cried and I have lost sleep over these characters. Why I say that these books are not for everyone is because these are very open door. There are a couple scenes throughout the book. However, what I love most about Lauren Asher books, especially this one, is that you don't really get spice until you've got a lot of depth. Okay, you get depth and trauma and hard-hitting things with these characters first, and I need that. If I'm going to read a romance and if you're going to make me root for these characters, you got to give me that. And I feel like Lauren Asher does a great job of doing that, and I cannot recommend these books enough. If you're okay with things like that, just know that these have those in there, but these are fantastic reads. Number 19 is a cozy mystery series, and yes, I have read the entire series, and that is the Seaside Cafe Mystery series by Bree Baker. The first one is Live and Let Chai. I read this entire series last year with my book club company Cozy, and I am so incredibly thankful that they read this with me, because I cannot think of a better cozy mystery series to read with friends, because the journey that these books take you on, oh my goodness. So it definitely has that cookie cutter of there's a murder in each of the books, okay, and there's a small town and everybody knows everybody and everybody's in everybody's business. But the thing that sets these cozy mysteries apart is this romance. There is a detective in this story, and I fear that he is the ultimate book boyfriend. I just don't think anybody can hold a candle up to Detective Grady Hayes. I haven't met anyone yet that has gone into this series and regretted it. So if you're looking for a good cozy mystery series, or if you're new to cozy mysteries and you're just kind of afraid to go into them, please start with this series. Coming in at number 18 is a Christian nonfiction book, and that is Love Walked Among Us, Learning to Love Like Jesus by Paul E. Miller. I love the topic of love, especially loving like Jesus. And I knew that going into this one that I was going to go into it getting everything that I possibly could from this book. And I just want you to know that there are things that I read in this book that I continue to apply to my daily life. And I just want you to know that I'm very hesitant when it comes to Christian nonfiction. I really do go in with a kind of hesitant mind, because I feel like a lot of Christian nonfiction authors go in with their self in mind and not really based off of scripture. This one bases off of scripture. Like literally it's mostly scripture, and then he has his commentary on it. And what I love most about this is that he shows us how we can apply that to our daily life and like what that looks like. And I am definitely going to, at some point in my life, reread this book. I think there's just too much goodness in this book to just let this completely just sit on my shelf. So I highly recommend if you're in the market for a good Christian nonfiction. You guys know what this book is? This is Fox Club by Adeline Grace. This is book number 2 in the Belladonna series. When I recommend this book to people, they kind of look at me weird, as one should. This is about a girl named Signa who falls in love with death. Please do not let that deter you from reading these books. Just think of death as another personified character, okay? Because Adeline Grace takes that concept and does something so beautiful with it. It just works. There's nothing like demonic or anything like dark about it. It's just beautiful. That's all I can tell you about this book, is that it's just simply stunning. The quotes in here, I do not highlight in books very often. I do tab them, obviously, but I do not highlight a lot in books. And I was highlighting pretty much every single page of this book. Like there were so many instances where I had to. Like it was a crime not to. Like, do you guys see all the highlights? This series in general means so much to me. I've only read the first 2. There is another book. There's the 3rd book, the final book. And I'm kind of nervous to go into that one. But just know that this one, if you didn't like Belladonna, at least try this one. This one is so good. The next book is The Death of Mrs. Westway by Ruth Ware. Now, this one is kind of controversial because I feel like you either really love Ruth Ware's writing or you don't. Because I do think that she has a very unique thriller writing style. This book was the very first thriller that I ever picked up. I know, the girl who reads thrillers. This was the very first thriller that I picked up. This was really the first thriller that got me into reading thrillers, and I have had the chance to tell Ruth Ware that, and I am so thankful for that opportunity because this book means so incredibly much to me because it really did spark my love of thrillers. This book is following our main character, Harriet, who is down on her luck. She is struggling financially. She doesn't really have a lot of people around her. And then all of a sudden she receives this letter in the mail stating that she is claiming an inheritance from her late grandmother. And she's really confused because she thought both of her grandmothers were passed away. She's like, you know what? I'm struggling for money. Let me go to this estate and see what I can get. And so she ends up going to this estate and things ensue. I will die on the hill that Ruth Ware's backlist is superior to her new stuff. So if you are not loving Ruth Ware's new stuff, I would definitely recommend her backlist, especially this one. The next books I'm going to talk about are actually a series as well. And yes, I have read the entire series, and that is the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. You have probably heard me talk about these books literally nonstop on my channel for the past year. And that is because I am utterly obsessed with them. So these books are YA mystery novels that follow a group of teenagers that have special abilities who help the FBI catch criminals. And this is literally Criminal Minds, but make it young adults. That's the best way I could describe these books to you. Literally true crime, but make it young adult. Oh my goodness, I adore this series with my entire heart and soul. I loved every single book. I have put this warning on here before, but I will say that book 3 going into book 4, they do get a little darker and they do get a little bit more intense, but again, it's young adult, so it's more toned down. So just kind of keep that in mind, especially if you are very sensitive to things like that. But literally book 2 and 3 are my favorite books in the series. So I promise you, if you can't get past book 1, at least get to books 2 and 3. They're so good, and they're so fast-paced, so quick, and I promise you, you're not going to be able to put these down. The next book I'm going to talk about is a book that completely took me by surprise, and that is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. Never read anything by Christina Lauren before, never even thought about picking up their books, honestly, because I just never gravitated towards them. And then one of my friends put this book on my radar, and let me tell you, I love this book so incredibly much. This book is about our main character who owns a ranch, who takes people out on these treasure hunts out on the ranch. And basically, long story short, she ends up taking her ex-boyfriend and a group of his friends out on a treasure hunt. Oh my gosh, this book was so fun. There were so many elements to this story. There was a good romance. There was a good mystery plot. Oh my gosh, there was so much going on, and it was so chaotic and so fun. And I cannot say enough good things about this book. I will say that there are a couple of open door scenes in this one. I think Christina Lauren typically does do open door scenes, but just for anybody who is curious about that. Oh my gosh, I promise you, this book is so much fun. If you want to just laugh out loud, this is the book. Book number 13 is another romance, and that is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Let's talk about something sugary. Let's talk about something sweet, down to earth, wholesome. You are not going to go wrong with Sarah Adams if you're looking for those things. This one in particular, I have had so many people tell me that they couldn't get past When in Rome. And first of all, I don't understand that because When in Rome is so good too. The When in Rome is the first book. This is the second book. Every book in that series follows a sibling in this family. This one follows Annie and Will. Annie is the little sister. She's the goody two-shoes. She doesn't ever get in trouble. She never has anything go wrong in her life. And she's just looking for someone to put an edge on her. And so she finds this beautiful bodyguard that is going to teach her how to be more edgy in her dating life. I'm going to just let the tabs speak for themselves in this book. I adore this book with my entire heart and soul. And I think it's mostly because I really see myself in Annie. And there are so many things that she says and does in here that I'm like, yep, that's me. So if you hate this book, then you actually hate me. I'm just kidding, chill. Book number 12 is probably a book that is going to shock some of you. And it definitely doesn't seem like a book that I would put on here, but I need you guys to know about this book. And that's Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Let me say this author has written things that I don't agree with. This author has wrote books that I will never pick up. This author has done things that I don't agree with. But I went into this one not really expecting much. I didn't really know what this one was about going in. I did know that it had a witchy element. So I will say right there, if you do not want any book with a witchy element, just steer clear of this one. It's not dark in any way, shape, or form. It's actually in a funny way. So if you're okay with it in that manner, then I would say proceed. This one is following our main character, Annie, and Annie has always played it safe. She's just a very like cookie cutter character who never goes outside of the lines, and she's really wanting to find where she fits in the world. And then she moves to this new place and she meets this girl named Sophie. And obviously Sophie has magical powers. She is the witch in the story. At its core, this is a beautiful friendship story. And this message is just finding out who you are, where you belong in the world with the help of someone else. I cried in this book. What? I cried in this book. And there are so many parts of this book that I was laughing out loud. I will say that there are some weird parts of this book, and I do think that this is classified as horror because there are some pretty grotesque parts of this book, but it's in a humorous way. It's not in a dark way at all. I promise you, I'm not going to come on here and recommend you a dark book that's going to like hurt you in any way, shape, or form. Like, I want you to enjoy your reading, and I wouldn't recommend you a book that would ever do that to you. But I do want you to be aware that there are some like parts in here that was kind of gross. So just know that going in, I loved this book. And again, at its core, I do think that it is a beautiful story. Oh, look. It's that graphic novel series that Hannah doesn't ever shut up about. Yeah, and I'm not going to. Sheets by Brenna Thumler. Guys, if you have been following me and you haven't read these books, why? There is absolutely no reason why you are not reading these books. They're graphic novels. They're graphic novels. If you can take one recommendation from me today, okay, I understand some of these books that you may not want to pick up or may not want to love. I don't understand this one, okay? So if you walk away with any recommendations for me today, let it be this one. Sheets by Brenna Thumler is all about our main character, Marjorie, who is having a rough time. She has just lost her mom. She's having to run her family's laundromat by herself. And then all of a sudden, this little ghost shows up in her laundromat. And yet another friendship story. I love friendship stories. Can you tell? Oh my gosh, this cute little ghost is literally the best part of my life. I love him so much. Where would the world be without Wendell? If your life does not have Wendell in it, I fear that it's lacking. I think we're in the top 10 now. I really hope that I haven't messed up the counting at all, but we're getting in the top 10 now, and I'm so excited to share these books with you. Let's talk about Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So many people love to throw their opinions at me about Daisy Darker, and I will not hear any negativity about this book. Okay, can we proceed? I love this thriller so much. This is what I mean when I want to go into a thriller. I have read many thrillers in my life. I really have. I have a bookshelf full of thrillers. Not one of them has surprised me like this one did. Yeah. I know that there's people that have read this book and have figured out the twist. And to that I say, like, are you actually human? Or because I don't understand how someone could have caught on to that. Maybe I am the only person on the planet that has not figured out the twist on this before the ending. But I loved this twist. I love everything about it. I love the vibes of this book. This book is basically following our main character, Daisy Darker, who is invited to her grandmother's 80th birthday, and her grandmother ends up dead, and then they are getting picked off one by one on this really creepy remote island, and they're trapped. And then there's a weird creepy VHS tape involved. That's my favorite thing in thrillers is when there's a creepy VHS tape. If you still haven't picked this book up yet, let me be the first to influence you. This one is probably my top thriller of all time. And none of you are going to be surprised if you know who my favorite thriller author is. And that is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is my all-time favorite thriller. And talk about a thriller that has it all. This one has it all. Has it all. This one is following our main character who is a caregiver, and she is given the assignment to go and take care of this elderly woman that is paralyzed. The thing is, though, is that this elderly woman has a reputation of being the woman that is suspected to kill her entire family. I am going to read you the creepy rhyme that's in this book because I feel like it sums it up way better than I possibly could. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope. Stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. I love Riley Sager. I will read his actual grocery list. I will actually go get his groceries for him. I love Riley Sager and I love everything he writes. He has had a couple of 4 stars from me, but this one was a 6-star read for me. I absolutely love this book and I do think about this book often. So if you're looking to go into Riley Sager, I almost say don't start with this one. I would put this one on your radar. Next book is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This book is polarizing. Either you love this book or you hate it. And I am obviously in that group that absolutely loves this book. I love the adaptation just as much. I feel like that adaptation is the closest adaptation to a book that I've ever seen. What is this book about? Well, if you haven't heard about what this book is about, let me be the first to tell you. This one is about our main character, Kaya, and Kaya, from a very young age, has it very rough. She lives out in the marsh, away from civilization. Both of her parents leave her and she's just left all by herself to kind of fend for herself and try and figure out life. And just the story of that. So I will say this is a very character-driven story, but there is an underlying plot to it. Like there's something going on in the future tense that we're trying to figure out what's going on throughout the entire book. And I will say that element alone is so good and enough to keep you on your toes until the very end. So if you are one of the very few that haven't read this book yet, I highly, highly recommend you do so. If you don't want to read the book, at least watch the movie because I feel like the movie does this book so much justice. I am so sorry if my camera changed because I had to go change my battery because I have talked too long about these books, which is to be expected. The next book I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite romances of all time, if not my favorite romance, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. It actually pains me that more people are not talking about this book, and I don't understand why. Actually, I do kind of understand why, because this is classified as a young adult romance. When some people hear young adult romance, they're like, whoa, whoa. Which I get it. I get it because I have read YA romance that I'm like, that's not it, which I understand. But I feel like YA romance gives you very simple surface level stuff. This is not that, okay? This story is following our main characters, Hazel and James, in the midst of World War I. Hazel is from London and James is from US. So obviously that is very chaotic. There's things going on and they meet in the middle of all that and they're trying to become closer during all of this chaos. And just the story of them becoming closer and falling in love. More people need to talk about this book. I will say there is an element in here of a perspective from Greek gods and goddesses. So if you are not like loving that part, I will say that that is just a small part of the way this story is told. But it's like a different perspective than I have ever read. It's so fun to just kind of read that as these two characters fall in love. But I will say that that is in there. So I just wanted you to be aware that that is in there. It's nothing bad, nothing dark. It's just, it's really fun and it's really beautiful. Okay, let's talk about this book. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This was one of my top books of 2024 and for good reason. First of all, if you've ever read this book, please do not go running for the hills. The fact that I'm recommending this book because I feel like this is a very polarizing book as well because this book is basically about a killer puppet that goes crazy. Hear me out! This story is following our main character who has just lost her parents. And so she's trying to navigate how to sell their house, how to deal with the grief of it all. And her and her brother come back together and they're trying to go through their house. And their parents were collectors, especially their mom. She collected dolls and puppets. Yeah, it's creepy. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you. Okay, it's very creepy. It's very gross. This is horror. Just know those things going in. But at its core, this book says something. And at its core, this book is a beautiful book. And I will die on the hill that this is such an underrated book. And so many people read this surface level and then they don't enjoy it because they don't truly get what he's trying to say. And I will tell you that there's a part in this book that if you get to it and you don't understand still, please message me. Okay, because I will tell you what it means. But I promise you, if you've ever gone through anything in your life, then you will understand what it means. And I know I'm speaking very vague here, but you gotta trust me on this one. You just gotta go with the flow and trust me on this one. I will not cry when I talk about this book. Do you understand? Do you understand, Hannah? I'm looking at you with a viewfinder. Do you understand me? We understand each other? Okay, next book I'm going to talk about is An Edge of In Between by Lorelei Savrin. I do not physically own this book, which is an actual crime, but I will own this book at some point. This book is the most beautiful book that I read in 2024. I absolutely did not see this book coming. This book is a retelling of The Secret Garden, and if you've ever read The Secret Garden, there is a lot of grief that takes place in The Secret Garden. I have not ever read The Secret Garden, so I had no idea. No idea that this book was going to hit me like a brick wall. And it did. It sure did. This book is following our main character who has lost her parents, similar to Secret Garden. And that's not a spoiler. That literally happens like 2 or 3 pages into the book. She's lost her parents, and then someone comes to her and says, you can see them again if you just get to the land of in between. This book has so many beautiful grief quotes and commentary and things, representations. I will tell you, this is a hard one. So don't go into this one expecting rainbows and butterflies, because it's not, but it is the most beautiful book. One of the most beautiful books that I've ever read. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. And this is another one, guys, that just took me by complete surprise. I was not watching or looking for this book when it showed up in my life, and it really does mean so much to me. This is the craziest part about this book, is that I read this completely on audiobook. I don't even physically own this book. The fact that I just listened to it, and it still means so much to me. It's literally number 4. That is insane to me. This is a historical fiction all about this woman named Alice. And Alice is new to this town because she's marrying into this family. And basically Alice and her new husband go to this town meeting, and where they're discussing a new mobile library, or a horse-drawn library. That's a new concept for people. People are kind of like, we don't want that, especially like if women are involved in it. And Alice raises up and says, I will do it. I will help run this library. And this other woman pops up, and this is a friendship story at its core. Are we sensing a theme here? I promise you, this book is going to make you feel all the things. It's going to make you feel frustrated. It's going to make you feel angry. It's going to make you feel happy, sad, all of the things. And I will tell you, the second half of this book just goes completely off the rails, and it is so good. So I promise you, even if you don't like historical fiction, I feel like that was just a small part of it, because again, at its core, it's just a beautiful female friendship story. Okay, if I have not forgotten a book, I believe we're at book number 3. So we are at the top 3 books, my top favorite 3 books of all time. Let's talk about number 3. Everybody saw this coming. Everybody knows that this book is going to be on this list if you have watched me for any period of time. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I could not have this video without talking about this book. I love this book so much. Do you want to know my hot take about this book? Do you want me to tell you? There is not one scene of spicy content, and this romance is literally the best romance I've ever read. So that should tell you right there that you can tell a absolutely stunning story with no spice at all. The tension, the banter, everything involved the male main character, all of it. The story is about our main character, Peyton Gray, who is an ordinary, and she is like the poorest of the poorest, lowest of the low. And she comes to cross paths with the prince, the enforcer, Kai. And she ends up having to save Kai. And the people see this, and they actually enter them into this Hunger Game-like games where they're like, these two are great. They would be a great match in these games. And so now they find themselves in these Hunger Game-like games fighting against each other. Please read this book. Not a single person, not a single one, is going to be shocked about this next one. The Shatter Me series by Tara Mafi. All of the books that I've talked to you about today, I have told you at the beginning that I will hear no hate about them. And I was kind of like, I'll listen to your hate. These, I will hang up the phone. Okay. These, I fear, calls for an unfollow. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm really not. But, I mean, you're entitled to your wrong opinion. These books are my entire heart and soul. I love these books so much, and I haven't even completed the series. This is just book 1 through 4, and this is top 2. Just know, these are YA romances. Okay? They are YA. Again, you're entitled to your wrong opinion. I eat these up every time. I have never, in my life, tabbed a book more or highlighted in the book more. especially this one. I don't know if you can tell which one is my favorite, but I fear it's actually obvious. I will say that so many people have tried this series based off my recommendations, and then they stop at book 1. Guys, look at the tabs on book 1. Okay, that's kind of like, I'm liking this, it's okay, but this is not like 6-star book. You have to get to books 2 and 3. I know I've said that a lot, but you have to. You have to. Book 2 was fantastic. It was Unravel Me. Book 3, it's criminal that this book even exists because I lost sleep, blood, tears over this book. I love this book so much, and this is the most I have ever highlighted in a book. I literally have highlights on every single page. Like, this is one page. Yeah, I will never ever be quiet about the Shatterby series. Okay, that does lead us all the way up to book 1. And again, if you've been a follower of mine at any point of time, I feel like I've talked about this book multiple times, and that is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I'm not 100% sure if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video because I've been sitting here for like 3 hours, but I did have a professor that absolutely loved to read, and I hated reading. I really didn't love anything about reading until she mentioned this book. She talked about this book, and she like went into detail about what this book was about. And it was then that I was like, okay, that book can't be that good. I went and got this copy, this particular copy, at literally the Dollar General. It was like $4. And I went and picked it up, and I read this all physically. I read it with my eyeballs. I wish I could go back and experience that experience again. Like, I can tell you where I was. I can tell you what I was doing when I finished this book. And it was just like in that moment that I finished this book that I knew I would never be the same again. And I know that is so dramatic, but I promise you, like, here we are. Okay, look at what this turned into. And it was all because of this book. And so because of that, I just don't think that there will ever be another book that will hold this one's place. This one means so much to me. And I actually reread it this past month, and it means just as much to me now as it did then. And I love, love, love this story. If you've never heard of this story or read this story, please let me be the first to influence you to read it. This one is following our main character, Anne, and she is an orphan, and she is adopted by this brother-sister duo who didn't really want her. They wanted a boy to help around the farm. And when they get her there to their house, to Green Gables, they just refuse to send her back. And literally the story is just following them as they fall in love with Anne, and Anne just loves life. This book is so good. I cannot say enough good things about it, and I cannot say anything else to make you want to read this book. So I really hope that I've influenced you if you haven't read this beautiful story. Oh my goodness, I think we're done. That was my top 20 books. This was the most fun video that I've ever filmed because it was just so fun to like revisit all of the books that mean so much to me and to tell you why they mean so much to me. So I hope that I influenced you to pick some of these books up. If I did, please let me know down below what book that you are excited to pick up from this list. I will say that just know that I'm not going to be upset at you if you do not like any of these books. I know that we all have our different reading taste. I mean, nobody wants to hear people bashing their favorite books. So again, if you love any of these books, if you pick them up because I have influenced you to do so, please let me know because that makes me so happy because I love these books and I love it when you guys love them too. If you made it this far into the video, please leave me a house emoji to represent Anne of Green Gables. And until next time, my friends, remember this world is a better place with you in it. And I love you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.